First, I hovered above my own funeral and watched ZC kneel before me, sobbing. Why cry? Wasn't he happy spending the holiday with his secretary? He later went insane, died, and searched the underworld for me. Meng Po said I'd already reincarnated. After rescuing Sisai from a fire, I inhaled too much smoke, and my lungs slowly gave out. On the Lantern Festival, I finished making sweet rice balls, tasted blood in my throat, lay down to rest, and never opened my eyes again. Sisa returned with the roasted chestnuts he'd gone out to buy me. His secretary Shu Ji followed behind. Seeing me on the recliner, he reached for a blanket. You're already in poor health. Stop wearing yourself out and get some sleep. But Shu Ji wiped her tears, looking deeply hurt. Mr. Z, your wife just texted me, called me a homewrecker, and told me to die. I should leave. I don't want to ruin your marriage. Shishi stared at my closed eyes. The concern in his gaze slowly turned to disgust. Zhongqing, what is your problem? Ji only came back to get a document. Can't you act like an adult for once? Even after my body turned cold, Zizi kept scolding me. Zizi, I'll never make trouble again. After lecturing me for a long time, Zizi saw that I still wasn't responding, and finally sighed. The anger left his face. He crouched down and gently placed the bag of roasted chestnuts he'd protected against his chest into my hand. Don't be mad anymore. His voice softened like he was comforting a sulking child. I waited forever to get these, and they're still warm. That shop is across town. Haven't you wanted them for ages? Get up and eat while they're hot. They won't taste good cold. The paper bag was warm, but sadly my palm could no longer feel even a trace of that warmth. Noticing how cold my hand was, Zizi frowned. He brought a wool blanket from the bedroom, carefully covered me and tucked in the corners. The familiar motion was heartbreaking. Then he went to the kitchen, where water began running. I'll get you some warm water. It'll soothe your throat. Cece's voice drifted from the kitchen, full of gentle nagging. After the festival, I'll put work aside and take you south to recover. It's warm and humid there. Your cough never gets better, so the air might help your lungs. And whenever you want to see the ocean, we'll go. Floating in the air, I watched his busy figure in the kitchen. My eyes burned, but ghosts couldn't cry. Zizi, it's too late. Shuji stared at Zizi's back, consumed by jealousy. She couldn't believe that even after I'd ignored him and pretended to sleep, he wasn't angry. He was still planning to take me south. While Zizi had his back to the living room, Shuji crept to the recliner and pulled my phone from my coat pocket. After a few tries, Shuji discovered that my password was Zizi's birthday. She tapped the screen and scheduled a text message. When she was done, she slipped my phone into her purse. A piercing scream suddenly shattered the silence. Shuji grabbed the crystal ashtray from the coffee table and smashed it against her own temple. Blood poured out and ran down her pale cheek. What happened? Sisu rushed from the kitchen carrying warm water. He found Shuji sitting on the floor, clutching her bleeding head and crying helplessly. Mr. Z, it was your wife. She suddenly hit me with the ashtray. She called me a homewrecker and told me to get out, or she'd kill me. Shisu's expression changed. He rushed to the recliner and reached for my arm. Zhongqing, have you lost your mind? Ji is just a young woman. How could you do that to her? Just as his hand was about to touch me, his phone chimed inside his pocket. Mr. C, check your phone. Your wife must be insulting me again. She was tapping her phone earlier. She's only pretending to be asleep. Shishi froze and pulled out his phone. A new message appeared on the screen. The sender was saved as wife. If that filthy secretary doesn't leave, I'll kill myself and make you watch. The veins on Tsitsi's hand bulged around the phone, his knuckles turning white. He looked up at me on the recliner. The last trace of tenderness vanished from his eyes, replaced by fury. Unbelievable. Shishi laughed bitterly, his voice ice cold. Zhongqing, you're threatening me with death just to drive Ji away? I've treated you too well, haven't I? Now you think you can do anything you want. He threw the warm water meant for my throat straight into my face. It ran down my gray skin, soaking my lashes and the wool blanket. I didn't move. Enraged by my silence, he grabbed the warm chestnuts from my hand and threw them in the trash. Fine. You like playing dead? Then stay here alone and keep acting. Sisu turned, pulled Shuji off the floor and never looked at me again. His voice was full of disgust. Ji, let's go. I'll take you to the hospital, then we'll celebrate at the office. Let her go crazy here by herself. The front door slammed shut so hard that the ceiling light shook. I floated above my soaked body and looked at the chestnuts in the trash. Zizi, I wasn't pretending. I was really dead. The next day, my body began to change. Dark purple marks appeared beneath my once pale skin. The heat was turned up high, speeding up the process. An invisible force bound my soul to CSI, forcing me to follow him wherever he went. CC drove with a deep frown. In the passenger seat, bandaged Shujiri played with my phone. After checking his expression, she opened my social feed, typed a post, tagged him, and sent it. Then she hid the phone and looked innocent again. Mr. Z, your wife seems really angry. Cece snorted and checked his own phone while driving. The moment he saw the newest post from my account, his face darkened. If you dare leave, I'll die at home and make you regret it for the rest of your life. Cece slammed his fist into the steering wheel. The horn blared, making everyone nearby turn and stare. That crazy woman? Cece gritted his teeth. After cooling down overnight, he'd started worrying about me. I was sick, and he'd thrown water in my face. He had considered checking on me and bringing medicine. But that social media post erased every thought of going home. You want to die? Fine. Then don't blame me for not coming back. Cece sharply turned the wheel. Instead of heading home, he drove toward Shuji's apartment. Mr. Z, do you think she's really angry? Maybe you should go check on her. I'll be fine by myself. I'm not going back. Cece answered coldly. She's pulled this stunt too many times. The more I comfort her, the worse she gets. This time she needs to learn a lesson. At Shuji's apartment, she did everything she could to keep Cece there. Wearing an apron, she cooked in the kitchen, then suddenly cried out. Cece had been sulking on the couch. Hearing her cry, he rushed into the kitchen and saw that hot soup had burned her finger red. How could you be so careless? Frowning, Cece immediately held her hand under running water. His movements were gentle, his eyes full of concern. The sight hurt. Whenever I cut myself cooking and asked him for a bandage, he said, "It's a tiny cut. Handle it yourself. I'm busy." He knew how to care about someone. He just never cared about me. Then Zici's phone rang. It was Zhou Yan, my doctor. Zici glanced at the screen, sneered, and answered. Hello? Cici, where's Zhong Qing? I've called her over and over, but she isn't answering. Her test results came back. She's in critical condition and needs to be hospitalized immediately. Put her on the phone. Cici cut him off impatiently, his voice dripping with mockery. So now you're part of the act? Dr. Zhou, Zhong Qing dragged you into this just to get my attention? You two really planned the whole show. What did you just say? Shu Genfrot. Cici, I'm not joking. Zhong Qing's lungs are failing. Tell Zhong Qing that if her fake suicide becomes real, I'll gladly collect her body. Teaming up with a doctor won't scare me. I'm not falling for it. He hung up and blocked Zhou Yan. Floating beside him, I screamed and tried to explain, but he couldn't hear me. Even after the call, Xie Qi was still furious. To make me jealous, he posed for a photo with Shu Ji. She held a glass of wine and smiled sweetly. Xie Tzu sat across from her with a cold expression, surrounded by a romantic candlelit dinner. She immediately posted it. Thank you for giving me the warmest lantern festival. I hope you're still beside me year after year. She hid the post from everyone except me. Late that night, fireworks exploded outside. Cici stood before the window staring at the brief bursts of light. Lost in thought, he rubbed his phone and sent me a message. Are you done throwing your tantrum? If you are, cook the rice balls and eat. Don't starve to death at home, that'd be bad luck. There was no reply. Not even the familiar typing bubble. Zizi stared at the screen, then tossed his phone onto the bed. He thought I was sulking. He didn't know my body was quietly decomposing on the recliner. On the 17th day of the lunar month, Zizi woke at Shuji's place with a splitting hangover. He reached for his phone. There were no unread messages. Before, no matter how angry I was, I never ignored him for more than one night. I made hangover soup and asked if his stomach hurt. Now there was only a frightening silence. She used to come running whenever I ignored her. Guess she's gotten bold. Shici tossed the phone aside, feeling anger rise for no reason. Fine, you want a battle of wills? Let's see how long you last. Shujui entered with breakfast. Watching his face, she cautiously made a suggestion. Mr. C, the weather is nice today. Why don't we walk by the ocean? You've been under so much stress. Cici wanted to refuse, but thinking about his ungrateful wife, he agreed. Just as they were about to leave, the property manager called. Mr. Z, the downstairs residents reported a strange smell coming from your apartment, like something is rotting. Could you please come home and handle it? Cici frowned. He remembered me lying lifeless on the recliner and the chestnuts he'd knocked over. He assumed I was deliberately leaving garbage and food everywhere to disgust him. My wife is probably refusing to take out the trash just to make me angry. Ignore her. She'll clean it when she can't stand the smell. After hanging up, he felt even more disgusted. At the beach, the winter wind stung his face. Standing on the rocks, he watched the waves, but his irritation only grew. He suddenly remembered our anniversary, when I'd held his sleeve and looked at him with shining eyes. Shici, I want to see the ocean. When I feel better, can we go collect seashells together? I'm busy, maybe next time. Looking at the shells near his feet, Zici's heart softened. He bought me a seashell bracelet from a roadside stand. Fine, I'll go home and make it up to her. Holding the bracelet, Zizi spoke quietly to himself. She's already sick. It'll be a headache if she gets worse from being angry. He went into a convenience store for water and planned to buy me a bottle too. While he was paying, Shuji watched him with a vicious glare. She pulled my phone from her purse, downloaded a photo of a cut wrist, sent it to herself, and hid the phone again. Then she put on a terrified expression and ran toward ZT. "Mr. C, something terrible happened. Your wife sent me a picture and said she cut her wrist. Look!" The change in ZC's hand fell to the floor. He snatched the phone and stared at the image. The bright red blood burned his eyes and fury surged through him. Another threat. Yesterday she refused to eat. Today she's cutting her wrist. Is she going to jump off a building tomorrow? CC roared and threw the bracelet into the ocean. It vanished beneath the waves. His eyes were bloodshot, his chest heaving. She wants to die? Fine, let her cut herself. Let's see how much blood she can lose. I floated in the ocean wind watching the bracelet sink. It was the first gift he'd ever chosen for me, and he'd thrown it away himself. See, it doesn't hurt anymore, really. On the 18th day of the lunar month, Zizi drove home in a rage. He had already decided that no matter how much I cried or begged, he would demand a divorce. He couldn't stand another day of this marriage. Shuji sat beside him with a triumphant smile. Once he divorced me, the position of Mrs. Zai would belong to her. When the elevator opened on our floor, Zizi stopped cold. The hallway was crowded. Yellow police tape blocked our door. Officers and a medical examiner moved in and out, while neighbors covered their noses and whispered in fear. "Oh God, that smell, it's awful. They say she's been dead for days. What a tragedy." Chisa's mind went blank. Shuji stepped out behind him and covered her mouth in fake shock. "Oh my God, did your wife set something on fire just to scare us?" Her words ignited his rage. Another scare tactic. She had even called the police to force him home. He pushed through the crowd and shouted toward the apartment. "Chongqing, get out here. Are you addicted to faking suicide? Do you have no shame? Will you only be satisfied after humiliating us in front of everyone?" He reached for the police tape. "What are you doing? Step back!" A young officer immediately blocked him. "No unauthorized personnel. This is an active investigation." Cece shoved the officer's hand aside and pointed toward the bedroom. "I'm her husband. This is my home. Tell that crazy woman to stop pretending and come to the hospital with me. She needs to stop embarrassing herself." The hallway fell silent. The neighbors stared at him strangely. An older medical examiner stepped from the bedroom, removed his gloves, and pointed toward a black body bag. "Stop shouting." The victim, Zhongqing, died from respiratory failure caused by pulmonary fibrosis and severe malnutrition. Based on the lividity and rigor, she's been dead for at least 48 hours. Cisa froze. "Dead?" He slowly turned from the officer toward the black body bag. "That's impossible. Yesterday she sent me a photo of her cut wrist and texted insults about Ji. How could she have been dead for 2 days? You've made a mistake. She's lying to you." Shuji quickly pulled out her phone and showed the wrist photo to the police. "Officer, his wife sent this to me yesterday. She isn't dead. She's pretending." The examiner frowned, studied the picture, and gave Shudri a long look. Then he turned to Shi Ti, his voice chillingly cold. "Sir?" Zhongqing's vital signs stopped on the afternoon of the Lantern Festival. "Tell me, how could a woman who had been dead for 2 days send this lady a photo yesterday?" Shi Ti felt as though lightning had struck him. 2 days? The afternoon of the Lantern Festival? That was when he'd left with Shuji and thrown my chestnuts away. His legs gave out and he dropped to his knees. He felt nothing as they struck the floor. He could only stare at the body bag. The shape inside was so small, so thin, and so still. Ching! His trembling hand reached for the zipper. He needed to see whether the person inside was really me. "Don't touch it!" An officer shouted and grabbed his shoulder. A forensic technician approached with 2 evidence bags. One contained my phone, the other contained Shuji's phone. "You're Mr. Z, correct?" The technician looked at him with open contempt. "We recovered fingerprints from the victim's phone. Other than the victim's, every print belongs to Ms. Shujiri." The officer raised Shuji's phone, its screen still lit. "We also found a secondary account named Backup Phone, along with extensive photo editing history." The officer opened the photo gallery and scrolled. Every threatening text, the cut wrist photo, and even that social media post were staged by Shujie. She used the victim's phone to create the illusion that Zhongqing was still alive and emotionally unstable. Cease's world collapsed. He turned toward Shuji, trembling in the corner. He remembered me lying still while she accused me of pretending. He had thrown water in my face. Had I already been dead, watching him abuse me for another woman? "No, that's not what happened!" Shuji kept denying it. She waved her hands wildly, tears and mucus covering her face. "Your wife made me do it. She wanted to test whether you'd worry about her. Mr. Z, you have to believe me." "Shut up." Shici lunged forward, wrapped both hands around her throat, and squeezed. She was dead. She'd been dead for 2 days. How could she make you do anything? His fingers tightened until his knuckles turned white. You stole her phone. You lied to me. When I left that day, was she already gone? Tell me. Shuji's eyes rolled back as she clawed at his arms. Because of you, I never saw her one last time. Because of you, I left her alone in that apartment. Tears poured down Ziza's face, mixed with regret and despair. I'll kill you. I'll make you pay for Ching Ching's life. The officers rushed in and dragged the raging Zizi away. Pinned face down, he kept staring at the body bag. He remembered what he'd said before leaving. You like playing dead? Then stay here alone and keep acting. His words had come true. My performance was over. I was really dead. Zizi let out a heartbreaking howl, like a wounded animal crying from the bottom of an endless pit. The police took Shuji away. Overwhelmed, Zizi coughed up blood and collapsed. When he woke in the hospital, he ripped out his IV and stumbled home despite everyone trying to stop him. The police tape was gone, but a terrible smell still lingered in the air. He opened the door. The apartment was empty. I wasn't there, and there was no steam rising from freshly cooked rice balls. Only the mess remained. Like a man without a soul, he knelt beside the recliner where I died and searched its cracks, desperate for any trace of me. His fingers found a notebook, my illness diary, hidden between the cushions. January 20th. I coughed up blood today, but I didn't tell Zizi. Work has been hard, and he's always frowning. I don't want him to worry. February worst. Zizi came home late and smelled like perfume. I don't blame him. As long as he still comes home, that's enough. February 14th. I want roasted chestnuts. When we were dating, Zizi always peeled them for me. I wonder if I'll get to taste them one more time before I die. His tears splashed onto the pages, blurring the ink. On the final page, my writing was shaky and uneven, stained with dark drops of blood. Zizi, if I fall asleep, don't blame me. I'm just tired. Take care of yourself and don't ignore your stomach pain. This life was too short. Next time, I won't save you. I want one chance to live a healthy life. Shisa clutched the diary, curled up on the floor, and sobbed until his body shook. He remembered that my head had been turned slightly toward the coffee table that day. The chestnuts I'd waited for were sitting there. And what had he done? He had thrown them into the trash. The chestnuts, the chestnuts! He crawled desperately toward the trash. The chestnuts were rotten and covered in white mold, but he dumped everything onto the floor and searched through the filth until he found them. I found them! I found them! He held the moldy bag like a priceless treasure. He peeled one open, revealing black, rotten flesh, and shoved it into his mouth. The bitter mold mixed with his tears as he chewed. Ching Ching, I'll peel them for you. Please get up and have one. I was wrong. I was so wrong. He ate and vomited until he could barely breathe. The door was still open when Zhou Yan entered carrying a document. Seeing Zizi's madness, he showed no sympathy, only cold contempt. Stop pretending, Zizi. Zhou Yan threw the document down in front of him. This is the body donation agreement Zhongqing signed before she died. Zizi froze and looked up, rotten chestnut covering his mouth. Zhou Yan stood over him and delivered my final wishes. She didn't want to be buried in the Z family cemetery because she thought it was filthy. She didn't want to see you because you disgusted her. She wanted her ashes scattered in the ocean, clean and free, never to meet you again. Zizi snapped. He tore the agreement apart and glared at Zhou Yan with bloodshot eyes. Get out! She's my wife! Nobody is taking her away! Using the Zai family's power, he seized my body and refused cremation. He paid for a crystal freezer coffin and kept me in the old apartment. Every day, he wiped my face, read to me, and talked to my frozen body as his mind slowly collapsed. Zizi used every connection he had to keep Shuji behind bars. He proved her fraud and evidence tampering, exposed an old bullying case that left a classmate disabled, and even uncovered her parents' tax crimes. In jail, Shuji wore a uniform and had her head shaved. Thin and exhausted, she knew there was no way out. She threw tantrums and demanded to see Zizi. I want to see Mr. Z. I'm innocent. Zizi loves me. That dead woman poisoned him against me. Zizi went to see her in a black suit. His face was pale, but his eyes were terrifyingly dark. Shisa, you bastard! You'll die horribly! That witch Zhongqing is still ruining my life even after she's dead. Shudai slammed her hands against the glass. Zizi said nothing. He gave her a cold smile, took out a recorder, and pressed play. Of course I switched that sick woman's life-saving medicine. She was dying anyway. The sooner she died, the sooner she could clear the way for me. Shuji's drunken laughter followed on the recording. You little troublemaker, you really know how to joke around. She'd said it in his car after a work dinner long ago. At the time, he thought it was a joke and even found her charming. Hearing it now, every word stabbed through his heart. When the recording ended, the hatred on Shu Drui's face turned to pure terror. She screamed hysterically. "No, I was joking. I only—" Cece stared at her with nothing but disgust. "I've already given the recording to the police. Attempted murder plus your other crimes. Shu Ji, spend the rest of your life paying for what you did to Zhongqing." After dealing with Shu Ji, Shizi resigned as CEO, sold all his shares, and created the Zhongqing Lung Disease Foundation. The once powerful businessman gave away his fortune and moved back into the rundown apartment where we'd started our marriage. He lived beside my frozen body and stopped sleeping. Even after taking handfuls of sleeping pills, whenever he closed his eyes, he heard me coughing and saying, "Cece, it hurts. Qingqing, I'm hurting too." Late at night, Zizi knelt before the recliner where I died, holding my portrait. He wiped it and kissed it again and again. His knees split open against the hard floor, soaking his pants with blood, but he felt nothing. The hole inside him had rotted through. No matter what he did, he couldn't fill it. Only by hurting himself could he dull his pain, even for a moment. 1 year later, the Lantern Festival returned. Snow fell outside as fireworks echoed through a city full of family reunions. The old apartment was dark except for 2 candles flickering beside my portrait. Jiti sat in the recliner. "Shizi, are the chestnuts cold?" A year of depression, starvation, and self-destruction had reduced the once proud man to skin and bone. Doctor said he was dying, his body had nothing left, and when the heart gives up, the rest soon follows. Still, he held on. Fresh roasted chestnuts steamed on the table beside homemade sesame rice balls. He'd made everyone himself. They were misshapen, but packed with filling. Cece picked up a chestnut with trembling hands. His stiff fingers barely worked, but he patiently peeled each one and neatly arranged the golden pieces until the entire plate was full. "Qingqing, have some chestnuts." Holding the plate toward the empty room, he spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "I peeled them this time. They're all good. None are rotten. Try one. Are they sweet?" No one answered. Only the snowstorm beat against the windows. Suddenly, a huge firework exploded, flooding the room with light and illuminating his paper-white face. In the shifting light, Zizi imagined the door opening. I entered wearing the white dress he'd bought me, smiling just as I had when we first met. My illusion tilted her head and looked at him playfully. His eyes lit up with one final burst of life. He reached out with his skeletal hand, desperate to touch the figure who had haunted his every dream. "They're not cold, Qingqing. They're not cold." He smiled as tears traced the deep lines beside his eyes. "They're still warm. I've been keeping them warm for you, right here against my heart." His fingers passed through empty air. Still smiling, Zizi slowly leaned back into the recliner, hugging my blood-stained diary as though he were holding me. At dawn on the 16th day of the lunar month, the year's first sunlight entered the room. Zizi rested quietly in the recliner and took his final breath, a peaceful smile on his face. Zizi's soul left his body. He looked at his wasted corpse without regret and felt nothing but freedom and joy. At last, he could see Qingqing again. He searched the room frantically, calling my name in every corner. "Qingqing! Qingqing! Where are you? I'm here!" But the room was empty. Refusing to give up, he raced down the road to the underworld. Red spider lilies burned beside the raging river of forgetfulness. He pushed through the waiting souls and ran to Meng Po at the bridge. "Ma'am, have you seen a woman named Zhongqing? She's thin, has bad lungs, and always coughs. Is she here waiting for me?" Meng Po stopped serving her soup, studied him with cloudy eyes, and shook her head. "Zhongqing? That poor girl drank the soup long ago. She's already been reincarnated." The answer struck Zizi like lightning. He froze in place. "No, I don't believe you!" He collapsed in tears at the bridge, crying like a madman. "She has to be waiting for me. She loved me so much. She would never leave without me." He would surrender every future life just to see me once. He would jump into the river and endure 1,000 years of fire for one more glimpse of me. But he didn't know I was floating above the bridge, high beyond his sight. I watched coldly as he lost his mind, cried like a child, and refused reincarnation because he couldn't find me. I hadn't reincarnated. The paper money and loving memories Zhou Yan sent me each year became offerings that sustained my soul, allowing me to live peacefully in the world of the dead. Speaking into the emptiness, I told myself, I don't hate him anymore, and I don't love him. Hatred takes energy, and he isn't worth it. Both love and hate disappeared when I died. All his devotion, regret, and searching were only a one-man show meant to move himself. I no longer had any interest in being his audience. In the end, unable to find a home or earn redemption, CHC's soul slowly dissolved into endless emptiness and despair. Carrying regret that could never be repaired, he became a speck of dust between heaven and earth. The real punishment wasn't separation in life, but never meeting again after death. Zhou Yan handled Zizi's funeral. In the old apartment, he found the bloodstained diary Zizi had treasured and a plate of dried chestnuts before my portrait. He burned them with paper offerings at a crossroads. In the flames, the diary pages slowly curled, blackened, and turned to ash, as if recounting a painful past that had finally come to an end. After that, Zhou Yan's life became peaceful again. Not long later, he adopted a little girl with congenital lung disease. He named her Nian Qing, Nian for remembrance, and Qing for Zhongqing. Under Zhou Yan's loving care, Nian Qing received surgery and grew healthier every day. She was intelligent and kind, like a small plant reaching bravely toward the sun. Years later, Nian Qing grew up and entered the best medical school. She became an outstanding pulmonologist, using her knowledge and compassion to heal countless patients suffering as I once had. Every Lantern Festival, Zhou Yan brought the grown Nian Qing back to the long-abandoned apartment. Before the recliner, still in its old place, he laid down white daisies, the flowers of love hidden deep inside the heart. "Dad, we come here every year. Who used to live here?" Zhou Yan didn't answer at first. He gently wiped dust from the recliner and looked into the empty room, his eyes filled with endless tenderness and longing. "A gentle, cheerful woman once lived here. She taught us what it means to love and what it means to let go." A breeze entered through the window and brushed the white daisies. Their petals swayed with a soft rustle, like a distant, peaceful sigh drifting down from me beyond the clouds.